Hi, folks, so welcome back to the Salty Seaman. Tales from the Fleet. Gabe finally goes to the fleet. Yeah. Where we left off, I was leaving Ace schools on a plane to Narita in Tokyo. So I was about to really dip my feet into the real world of the Navy. I get there and get off and smoke a bunch of cigarettes because I had a direct flight from Atlanta. And they just started the no smoking thing. I went to ESO. There was sailor there, second and first class, and he said, like, "Oh, you're on the Blue Ridge. Yeah, you're probably gonna be in TPU. I believe they're out on deployment." So, like, what's that? Like, oh, it's a temporary barracks where they keep people when they're not on the ship. They're supposed to be on a ship. People waiting for orders, people on medical hold, that stuff. I was like, oh, okay. So I drive through the night of, it's already dark there, through the night of Tokyo to Yokosuka. So I see really nothing of Japan other than lights. It doesn't really mean anything to me. I see stuff in Japanese, of course, and I heard Japanese at the airport. But it's still like all a little bit kind of surreal and not kind of like, whoa, wow. But, it's still kind of excited. I was happy to be, out in the fleet. And, even I was nervous and excited to get to my ship, but I was like kind of like, okay, temporary barracks is probably, it's a nice little break before I got to actually start doing my job. And that's what it turned out to be. I checked in, they said muster in the morning at 7:30, and I went to the room and no one was there. One of my roommates came back in a little later. He was a airman going to what at the time was the USS Independence. That was the carrier for 7th Fleet at the time. He snored. He snored like a fucking truck. One of the loudest snores I've heard in my life. And it wasn't just me. Like when I got my next roommate, a friend of mine named Brian, he was going on my ship. He was a radioman, and we stayed friends the entire time. He's a cool guy. Another kind of similar to DeWitt. He was a bit of that burner Michigander accent. He was from Michigan, and he did smoke, but he wasn't nowhere near to the level of what DeWitt was burnt out to be. But he's a real cool guy. But yeah, I was like, yeah, you heard that guy snore? I was like, yeah, I heard that fucking guy. It's ridiculous. To the point, one night, it was like the third or fourth night, both of us were in there with him. And otherwise, a fairly nice guy. But yeah, the guy next door pounded on the wall because he slept next to the wall. And I guess he was vibrating the whole fucking wall. Just, I mean, it was fucking terrible. And he slept a lot. Like he was like we had jet lag and we were all messed up. But yeah, that guy was like, he was out at 10 every night and slept all and just snored all the way through. So anyway, getting back to the next day, yeah, my first real day in the fleet, call it that. Yeah, I was picking up trash on the side around base in Yokosuka. Of course, it's my first time seeing the base, first time seeing anything really. And there's one guy I kind of recognized from Ace School, this guy Ted, who I work with on the Blue Ridge in the future also. I think we had even briefly met in the smoke pit, and we were both smokers and figured out we were both going to the Blue Ridge, but I think I had him the first day. He was my partner picking up trash, and you just walk around and pick up fucking trash. And they give you like kind of a line to follow, and then figure out how to get back for those who don't know where they're going. So I did that a couple days. I get off. I really didn't do anything. I also think I was broke. They split my paychecks up. Like before I left boot camp, they gave me my last paycheck plus half of the one I'd be missing while I was on leave. And I fucking blew that shit pretty quick. And then not too long after I got to boot camp, they gave me the next paycheck and the other half. So at least I had that. But yeah, I mean, wasn't a lot. Like, I mean, it was 18 to drink on beer on base at the time. So it was my first time ever legally buying a 6-pack. And even I was still nervous, even knowing that was the rule. I bought like a 6-pack of Bud Ice. Don't judge me, okay? I was 19. And yeah, that was pretty cool. I think my roommate had like Red Bull. We're just sitting there in our rooms casually drinking beer, because that's what you do. It was still kind of weird. I don't know. They changed that rule. Like you had to be 20 to drink anywhere, just like the supposed age of drinking in Japan is, which is not enforced whatsoever out in town. I think that literally changed on my way back from meeting my ship. but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So after like, I think the third or fourth day, I met this guy who introduced me to the concept of skating. Or maybe not the concept. He introduced me to the word. After we got our trash picking assignments, he pulled me aside and says, "Hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm a skater." I'm like, good for you. I skateboarded a bit when I was my early teen. Like, no. Like skating, do you know what Navy skating means? I'm like, I guess not. I just hadn't heard that term yet. And he explained to me, it's like, yeah, when you have a bullshit assignment like this is your ability to get out of it and not be caught. That is skating. Or any assignment, whether it needs to be done or not. But in this case, it was, bullshit garbage assignments. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm down. So he explains it to me. So now look, you go on these routes, and at some point before lunch, they're going to make one round in the van. Make sure you're out there doing what you do. Once we see the van goes by us, we turn back around and go to our room to nap until lunchtime. So he was a fleeter coming from, he was on medical hold or legal hold from another ship. Probably legal hold. And yeah, that's all we did. And we went a couple more times when we were doing that detail. Like, we would always hook up to make sure we were partners. And yeah, one time I did get asked, it's like, "Hey, Owens and such. Yeah, I swung by. I didn't see. I was like, oh, well, we were there. I don't know why you didn't see us. I don't know if he did two stop bys while we were out, or we mistook another duty van for the TPU duty. But regardless of that, I was like, I'm not risking this anymore because someone's already looking at me suspiciously. But didn't really have to worry about it. Like starting the next week, we did a Japanese in-dock. It's one of the things you have to do when you go overseas. I was in Ukuni, my last duty station, and like theirs is rotten. It's like one morning of just people going around tables of different services on base, and like you get like one tiny tour in the afternoon. It was pathetic. This one was like a 3 full days of like, I believe he was a DC-1 who'd been in Japan forever. Knew everything, and he was explaining the customs and courtesies and what to do, what not to do, and what not to do on town. Don't make this gesture, don't make that gesture, don't stick your chopsticks in your food, it's disrespectful. All that good stuff, some basic Japanese phrases. And then the last day, we had to go out by ourselves, get on the subway and go to some kind of landmark, or anywhere really, but somewhere. You had to go somewhere, do the train, figure out the train by yourself, and then you had to come back. And me and I know aforementioned Brian, we went to the Big Buddha. Now I don't remember the name of the city. Shit, it wasn't Shibuya, it was something. We made it all the way down there, went there, saw the world's fattest squirrels. Like, all squirrels sit around there and eat like just crap that people that are visiting the giant Buddha throw at them. They're seriously the fattest squirrels. And then we came back. Sometime in there, I met my future girlfriend on the ship. Talk about it later, but I won't talk into it a lot for various reasons. And it's not really that much to there, but regardless. And then the rest of the time we were in TPU. Yeah, I think we were down working at the docks. We're helping out the people who ran the docks, BOSA's mates and OS's and whatever else are out there on their shore duty. They were cool people. Like, I mean, it was, there's some hard work there, but they weren't dicks. I mean, I never wanted to go to deck, but I mean, at least my experience with the docks on Yokosuka was fine, despite the nature of the work. And yeah, that was pretty. It's TPU in a nutshell for the most part. I mean, I really just did not do anything exciting during my like 2 weeks there. You had duty days. They were kind of a joke, and I was watching some Japanese TV. That's when I first realized there was like another Transformers that wasn't American. Like, I believe it's Star TV was showing like episodes of Transformers, and I'm a huge fan. I'm like, oh shit, let's watch some Transformers. And I'm looking at it like, I don't remember this episode. Wait, this episode, I definitely know this episode never aired in the States. I would have known it. Okay, so Japan has its own Transformers. That's some bullshit. We didn't get any of this. I think I saw my first I knew anime and anime movies, but there was a very famous one by Ghibli Studios, Girl in a Hang Glider. First time I ever saw that, but it was in Japanese. We got Japanese channels on our, in barracks TV. Winds of the Nausicaa? I think it's something like that. It's the first time I saw that. And, I was meeting people there. Like, one guy I met, this guy Mike, he was an MM3 on the Indie. And I was a big Dungeons and Dragons player, and he was telling me about, oh, yeah, you need to come to when the Indie's in port, we go to the Fleet Lounge, we play Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, that's very cool. There'll be a lot more on that later, both a couple different perspectives on the Fleet Lounge, as I would learn them over the time. But I remember meeting him there, and that was cool. And then, yeah, one day they told us, you guys, all you people for the Blue Ridge are flying you into Singapore. And then someone who was on the ship who was going back is like, well, why aren't they coming back here from Fleet? Like, we don't know. We can't get the full ship's operation, but they want to fly everybody that's supposed to be back on board or reporting on board out to Singapore, and then go wherever else after that. Which ended up being true. It was we flew into Singapore for it was a 5-day Liberty port. We got 4 of it. New check-ins, no duty, which is nice. And then it was 8-day trip back straight to Yokosuka. So 2 weeks, they flew us out. I guess it was probably a military flight, I would assume, to Singapore. And, we had to get up at like midnight or something to go catch the plane. I think we went to the Air Force Base there in, I keep wanting to say Kadena, but that's the Okinawa one. There's the big Air Force Base in Tokyo. I was just there not too long ago. I should remember it. That's where I went for training for AFN. But regardless, they drove us out there. Ted, the aforementioned Ted, I knew from A school, overslept and missed the bus. Luckily, he did not get hit for missing ship's movement. They flew him in on the next, later that night, I think, the next night. But yeah, I think that's where I'll pick up next time. I think my first day on the ship in the real true fleet, and my first experience with person that was my sponsor would soon become my best friend, but not for a while, amongst some other characters. And my first night out in town as a true sailor is due its own little bit. So I will save Singapore for next time. Hope you guys enjoy this little quick one, because I wanted to save the next part for its own bit. So hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you freaks around. Peace.